Hello, everyone. Oh my gosh, what an incredible day. And I can't think of a better way to end it than in this panel with Alex. Um, I don't know if any of you have been in the other panels. This is actually Alex's third panel, so we're so lucky. And I'll keep the intro short. And I would just like to say that I feel like I've gotten to know Alex a little bit, and the warmth and the genuine kindness that Alex shares is so appreciated. So I'm really glad to be in this space with you again, Alex. Again, just to list some of your credentials, you're a certified gender specialist, certified sex therapist, somatic experiencing trauma practitioner, clinical supervisor, an award-winning author of books on gender and sexuality. And, you know, I think what I've seen so far as I've been listening to you is that this work isn't something that you just do because you studied it. It's something you do because you live it and you care deeply about it. So again, I'll say one more time, we're all so fortunate to be learning from you and alongside you. Without further ado, I'll pass it over to you, Alex. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jordan. That is such a beautiful introduction, and I hope to kind of live up to it. So this is the experiential session, which I've been really looking forward to because I'm hoping there'll be some more interaction with participants. And so we'll do kind of just to orient you to the structure. In a moment, I'm going to do a little bit of a somatic check-in, and if you want to participate, you can. If you just want to go refill your glass of water or do something else, you also can do that. So we'll do a brief somatic check-in. And then I'm just really going to guide you through some self-exploration around the topic of loving beyond binaries. And then there'll be a breakout room where you get to talk to other participants. We'll come back together, share whatever people feel up to sharing. There's going to be no pressure to share anything. There's going to be consent in all activities. So just do what you feel like you want to do and leave the rest if it doesn't suit you. And then we'll kind of wrap it up. And it'll be, I think, the end of day 2 of the Engendering Love Summit. So that's kind of a little bit of what's going to happen. And so because I am a somatic experiencing practitioner and because it's been a long day, which I'm sure it has been for you as well, I would like to just to take a moment to do a little somatic check-in with ourselves. And all I'm going to invite you to do is just to breathe, and if you need to kind of resettle on your chair to feel a little more comfortable, feel free to do that. If you need to grab a blanket or a pillow or open a window, do whatever it is that you need to do to just bring a little bit more ease to your body in this moment. And then as and when you feel ready, I'm going to invite you to pay attention to breath. And I know we're breathing all the time, right? From our first breath to our last breath, we're going to be breathing. And all I'm going to invite you to do is to pay attention to your breathing. You don't have to change it. You don't have to count or do anything. We're just going to be intentional. If it feels good to close your eyes or lower your gaze, you can do that. If it doesn't feel good to do that, you don't have to do that. So as and when you feel ready to turn towards your breath, just take a moment to just say hello to yourself and notice with as much curiosity and as much non-judgment as you're able to in this moment, how are you doing right now? And again, trying to be curious and non-judgmental towards ourselves as much as we can. It's just a gentle saying hello to ourselves, Are your muscles tense or relaxed? What thoughts are going around your head? How's your breathing? Does it have ease? Is it a little bit maybe impeded by allergies or other things? How's your heart? both your heart in terms of your feelings and how fast it's beating and how does it feel to notice your heart as you breathe. And as you're breathing and becoming more aware of your body, I'm going to invite you to notice that place where your body meets the support underneath you. It could be the floor, the bed, the couch, chair, the earth if you're outside. Just take a moment to notice that place where your body meets the support underneath. Take a moment to notice that you are supported and held in this moment by that floor, that bed, couch, chair, whatever it is that's underneath you. And if it feels okay to do that, I'm going to invite you to just relax even 5% more in that support and see how that feels for you. And again, using that curiosity and that non-judgment as much as you're able that we called in earlier. Just notice what happens when you let your body be held by gravity. And the love of the good green earth that keeps us here, the love of gravity, feeling that through your body, feeling that weight of gravity holding you. We're just going to take a couple of breaths here. And then in your own time, taking all the time that you need, when you feel ready, if your eyes have been closed, this is a good time to very gently bringing them back to the environment around you. In your own time and at your own pace, kind of look around your environment and see if there is something that's pleasant, comforting, or neutral around you. It can be as simple as like a glass of water, or a pleasant color on a fidget, or on a box of tissue, anything, or maybe even on another person's screen. And just take a moment to take in something that's comforting, pleasant, or neutral in your environment and connect with that for a moment. And then when you're ready, take a moment to kind of connect with this beautiful Zoom room where other beings have come together to do this work of loving, this love work, really, this loving work of loving beyond gender binaries, and connecting in whichever way feels good to you right now, whether it's scrolling through people's pictures, whether it's reaching out energetically, if you're so inclined, if that's way too woo for you. Maybe just noticing that there's 24 people in this room, whatever feels good to connect to one another with this magical technology that allows us to connect across time and space. And also, coming back to self, noticing if you need maybe to give yourself a little gentle squeeze or kind of a little move from side to side, kind of fully come back to the here and now, to presence, to yourself as we begin this work. And please feel free to use that resource you noticed around you at any time, come back to breath at any time, and take care of yourself and your body at any time in whatever way feels good to you right now. And so what I would like to do next is really start with a little bit of an exercise, actually. It's an exercise I call River of Experience. And what I would like you to do, and Pauline, who I think is here, yes. Pauline, in a moment is gonna put those instructions in the chat as well, so you don't have to remember them all, don't worry. But I'm gonna invite you to imagine your life as if it was a river. And it can be, you know, a huge river like the Mississippi. It can be a tiny stream in your backyard, whatever kind of river is coming to mind for you right now. And so imagine that your life is like a river, and each bend of the river represents a significant person, book, object, event, encounter, something that has influenced or taught you what love is and your understanding of loving today. And you can start at any point in your life. You can start from yesterday. You can start from when you were a baby. You can start from when you were 15 years old. Just pick a time in your life. And if you have pen and paper, or even on your phone or in your computer, I'm really going to encourage you to take a few moments to kind of draw that river. It doesn't have to be a good drawing. I'm a terrible drawer. You know, you can just be like a little line. So if you have pen and paper, I really encourage you to use that, or you can use, you know, a Google Doc or your notes app on your phone. And so every bend of the river is a significant person, event, object, moment, relationship, maybe a movie that has taught you or influenced what you know about love and loving today. So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to do that by yourself. And I'm going to take a moment also to copy the instructions in the chat. And this is one of those exercises that can take as long as we give it. We're going to give it 2.5 minutes today because we have a lot of things we want to do. And so if there are any questions, feel free to unmute yourself or to put your questions in the chat. So we're going to give it another minute or so. Try not to overthink it. Let whatever comes come. So that's about 2.5 minutes. You can always come back to this exercise if you were really getting into it and you're like, there's so much more I wanted to put there. You can absolutely come back to it. You know, and for now, you can just let it be. And if anybody wants to share, not necessarily the content, but what that process was like, to be asked to kind of notice all those influences about what we've learned about love and loving. Feel free to kind of unmute yourself or put that in the chat. Yeah, and I will copy again the exercise in the chat for folks who maybe just joined us. So I will repost it as well. And you don't have to. I just want to give you the opportunity if you want to share anything with the group to do that. So I'm just going to give it a few breaths. And if you choose to pick up this exercise at some other point, another thing that you can do is keep expanding that metaphor. And once you've done your river, kind of look at it and think, where was I in relationship to that river at that point in my life? Was I swimming? Was I drowning? Was I sitting on the bank of the river, right? Was I just gently going along on my little kayak? Was I navigating rapids? What was happening as you were navigating this river? And so that's an exercise that if you find helpful, I really, oh, thank you. Somebody showing me their river through the camera. I love it. Thank you so much. Oh, more people are showing me their rivers. I love it. Thank you. Oh, this is so fun. Thank you. And a couple of people have put comments in the chat too. Oh, I'm so torn. I was like, there's rivers here in the pictures, there's information in the chats. Oh, so rich, this group. People have written in the chat, I learned it was connected to belonging, not belonging for me, especially in younger years. I found it quite hard to assign specific things to each band of what I drew, but the shape on its own made sense to me. It felt similar. Yes, it is similar to automatic writing. It's a way of kind of, you know, just metaphors can help us connect to ourselves. Somebody else said, I was out in my little kayak yesterday and saw a huge mama snapping turtle waking up from hibernation, sunning herself. Oh, what a beautiful image of spring coming and life coming back, right? And animals have expanded by meaning of love, said somebody else. Absolutely. Our animal companions often give us unconditional love in a way that can be hard to get from human animals. Sometimes it's easier to get from our non-human animal companions. Somebody else put in the chat, my siblings being born, twists and turn and love. Beautiful. Thank you, everybody. So why, you know, when I was asked to do a session, why did I choose to do a session that focused on loving beyond gender binaries? One is because, you know, the summit is about engendering love. And love is something that's really important to me, not just as a feeling, but as a practice. I truly believe that love is a verb and a practice and a choice and a commitment that we make to ourselves and each other and life, rather than just kind of a passing feeling. And so I was really excited to be part of it. And a lot of my work is about being in the liminal, being an edge walker and challenging binaries. And I truly believe that life isn't binary and love isn't binary either. And yet, when we think about love, there are so, gender is so pervasive, right? It even labels our relationships sometimes, you know, wife, husband, father, daughter, mother, son, right? Brother, sister. Those are all kind of gender terms. And so in a way, we come into relationships already informed by the social, cultural expectations of gender. What does it mean to be a daughter? What does it mean to be a sister? What does it mean to be a mother? What does it mean to be a son, right? And does that all make sense? And even the words that we use to even, you know, even in the case of romantic love, and I really don't want to limit it just to romantic love in this session. I really want you to think about love and loving in this much more expansive way and relationships in this much more expansive ways. right? Even in the way we might express love and admiration for each other in romantic relationship, some of those words are gendered, right? You're so handsome, you're so pretty. Those are connected to gendered ideas, right? We generally, often people don't say to somebody they perceive as feminine, you're so handsome. Sometimes, right? And so there's a lot of kind of gender that's pretty pervasive in our world, and that kind of informs us as we come into relationships. And so another really short exercise, because this is an experiential session, so I've tried to really keep it as experiential as possible and me talking as little as possible, because I feel like I've done a lot of talking today already. But something else that I would invite you to think about, and Pauline is going to put those questions in the chat, and this is going to be just a 1 minute quick reflection, so really try not to overthink it, is what are the relationship roles that you're currently in your life, right? I mentioned a few, like daughter, brother, son, sister, husband, wife, partner, student, can be any role. What relationships roles are you currently in? Are they all comfortable for you, or are there places of discomfort in some of those roles? So do you feel comfortable in all of those roles? And what feels comfortable in your relationship roles and what doesn't feel quite so comfortable? So I'm going to give you a minute to think about this, and then we're kind of going to build on this exercise. And like I said at the beginning, just do what feels right for you, leave the rest. But yeah, so it's all in the chat. What relationship roles are you currently in? Just jot them down on your phone, on a piece of paper. Are they all comfortable for you, or are there places of discomfort in some of these roles? And what feels comfortable in your relationship roles and what doesn't quite feel so comfortable? So for example, one of my roles is parent. I feel pretty comfortable in that role, but something that sometimes doesn't feel quite so comfortable, feels heavy, is the responsibility of being a parent. So that's just an example. So take a minute. I'm going to start my little timer. Try not to overthink it. Just jot down whatever comes up for you. Just a few more moments to think about this. That's my little chimes in my timer. And so again, you know, if you found that you were really getting into it, those are all things you can come back to later. If you got the package, I think with the recording, you also get a little ebook around Loving Beyond Binaries that's got some of those exercises. And so you can also just kind of save the questions and pick them up later. So what we're going to do with that comfort and discomfort now is kind of build on it a little bit more. And I really want you to think about your relationship roles and how you love and how you are loved in those roles, right? So for example, one way I feel loved by my children is, you know, when they feel like it, they hug me. My daughter's at college, sometimes texts me or shares a TikTok video with me. You know, that's a way that she's sending love and I'm receiving love. So we all have lots of different ways in which we're giving love to others and we're receiving love from others in all those relationships that you just thought about. So remembering that gender cannot be considered in isolation of all those other things, such as age, the way we're racialized, our socioeconomic status, whether we're disabled or not. Gender is kind of complex, and it's both about identity, but also cultural and social norms. And we know that that is way more complex that we can do justice to in the rest of our time. But remembering all of that, I really want you to think about how being in a specific role has sometimes stopped you or given you pause from either expressing love towards beloveds in a certain ways, or if it fits better and you want to think in ways in which you kind of, your beloveds have expressed love towards you, we can do that. And Pauline is going to put those examples, those questions in the chat as well in a moment. So what I want you to think about is being a whatever gendered role or gender identity you hold. So for example, being a trans masculine person, it would be for me, right? Being a man, being a woman, being an agender person, whoever you are, being a specific gender has stopped me or given me pause from expressing love towards my beloveds in these ways. And then you list one or two ways. For example, it can be as simple as being a woman has stopped me from giving flowers to my husband. Being a father has stopped me from crying in front of my son. Does that make sense? Or if it fits better, you can think about the ways in which your beloveds are gendered and how that has led you to express love in certain ways. For example, one of the examples I made is that my oldest, my daughter, who's in her 20s now, and anything I share is like with her consent. So she's almost 20, sorry. When she was a teenager, I really wanted to make sure that she felt good about herself, because I know how much pressure there is on teenage girls in terms of appearance, right? So I would often say, you look great, honey. Like, oh, the outfit is great, right? And she said, Mom, I don't want to upset you, but I noticed that you comment on my appearance way more than you comment on my younger brother's appearance. And I was like, do I? And I was like, she was like, yep, you do. Take a moment to notice that in the next couple of days, right? And so I did, and I did. And I said, I'm so sorry. I really wanted to make sure you felt good about yourself, because I had a lot of issues with body image when I was growing up. And I was a teenager that was read as a girl at the time, right? And so I wanted to make sure this doesn't happen for you. And she was like, yes, and it's also misogynistic that you comment on my appearance and you don't comment on my brother's appearance, for example. So that's an example of how our gender and the gender of our beloveds can influence the way in which we express and receive love. I was trying to express love in, I want you to feel good about yourself, because I didn't feel good about myself as somebody who was read as a teenage girl. So I was trying to express love, but it didn't feel like love. It felt like being pointed out in a way that was different from a brother, for example. Does that make sense? So go in whichever direction you want to, and just take a moment. Being a man, woman, trans masculine, trans feminine, non-binary, whatever your gender is, has stopped me or given me pause from expressing love towards my beloveds in a specific way, or the ways in which my beloveds are gendered has led me to express my love in specific ways. Again, try not to overthink it. We'll give it a minute. And then we're going to go in breakout rooms so you can talk to each other. And if you have any questions at any point, you can unmute yourself or ask your questions in the chat. That's my little chimes letting me know that the 1 minute is up. All right, so hopefully you come up with something if it felt like an exercise that you wanted to take part in. And so what I would like to do in the breakout rooms now, it's kind of really building on this kind of individual reflections that we've been doing, but starting to move towards what would it look like to express our love in a much more expansive way, right? And of course, we've only got an hour together. This, if we had the whole day together, we would be going so much slower. We would be doing so much processing, both verbally and somatically. But I know that I'm kind of guiding you through things at a more sustained space. So in a moment, Pauline is going to put you in breakout rooms. And in the breakout rooms, what I would like you to talk to each other about is the following, and this will also be put in the chat, is if all gender identities, expressions, roles were viewed as beautiful, valid, and expansive, what would be different, if anything, in your relationships, including your relationship with yourself? So, if we lived in a beautiful, utopian, liberated, gendered world where anybody could be any gender identity, expression, or have any gender experience or role and feel completely beautiful and valid in that role, what would be different, if anything, in your relationship, including your relationship with yourself? Another potential seed question is, would you let yourself love and be loved in new ways? And if so, what would that look like? What are those new ways in which you would let yourself love and be loved? And what would it take to bring this scenario a little closer to reality in your own life? So those are 3 seed questions that are all in the chat. And in a moment, Pauline is going to put you in groups of 4 in the chat, and you're going to have about 15 minutes. So that should give you enough time for 3 or 4 minutes each to talk about this. Before we go to breakout rooms, any questions of clarifications? Does it all make sense? Okay, great. So I'll let Pauline talk to you about breakout rooms and what's going to happen with the breakout rooms. And then you're going to be in breakout rooms for 15 minutes. And then we're going to come back together in the larger Zoom room to talk to each other about what you've discovered in your breakout rooms. Go back. Love the magic of Zoom. It's maybe a little abrupt when it closes down the room, but hopefully you are all having beautiful conversations in your breakout groups. Well, we have a little bit of time. If anybody feels, you don't have to, again, but if anybody feels like sharing anything that's come up in your small group conversations or anything that you want to share with the larger group, this is a good time to do that. So just unmute yourself, and go for it. Yeah, Marcelo, I see you. Just unmute yourself and go for it.
Well, in the room, not finished, one came the yellows, los celos, in the relations, in any relations, really. It's one term emerged in the room. I'm not finished to talk about. I don't know if interesting talk about this.
Thank you. You can share anything that's come up in the small rooms. Any of your kind of sharings are welcome. Absolutely. Yeah. Anybody else who wants to share anything that's come up in the breakout rooms or that's coming up for yourself as you've been doing those reflections? And again, you can just unmute yourself. You can write in the chat. I know it can feel like a lot to talk in front of people. Hopefully it's a small enough group that some of you might take some courage and share. Laura?
I'll just throw in, let's everyone just meditate and radiate that utopia world, because come on, let's holy, I think having to put pronouns and all, this just gets so complicated. Can't we all just get along and like respect one another and realize we are all different. We are all our own multifaceted, star being, and we should learn to just treat one another that way. And thank you for that question. So that's my closing remark, and thank you all.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And if anybody has come up with some brilliant steps towards that beautiful utopian future, and you want to share those, you can do that too. I'm just going to give a couple more breaths to see if anybody else wants to share.
I think just your presence and what you have done in this past hour is a beautiful example of how we can really center and love ourselves more. And I think when we're able to love ourselves more, we're able to love others in a more expansive way. And it's sad that we do not live in this utopian world yet, but this type of conference would not have been possible. I don't even think maybe 10 years ago. And so I see it as very, very hopeful and very grateful.
Thank you.
Oh,
Well, thank you, everybody. Yeah, and if, oh, yes, beautiful words, absolutely. And really, I think that sometimes, when people think about gender liberation, right, they can get afraid. I love what you said about, when we love ourselves more, we can love ourselves more, each other more too. And I think it's because we're less afraid of those parts of ourselves that maybe we're uncomfortable with, and so when we can love all parts of ourselves, right, it makes it easier to love others in some ways. And I think that sometimes people think that when I'm talking about gender liberation or going beyond binaries, that I'm talking about, the abolition of gender, no more men, no more women. And, much as I love people who can rock androgyny, like Prince was like opened up worlds for me as a teenager in the 80s, right? With his beautiful kind of expansive masculinity and queer masculinity. What I'm really talking about is just more room for everybody. It's not about taking away, it's about enriching, right? Oh, I love that somebody put in the chat, my hope is restored in humanity. And this group of people on screen know that we're committed to do the hard work regardless of our gender. That is beautiful. And I love that expression, hard work. Somebody else's book. I thought it was lovely that we found each of us in the group had contributed one part of some important ways to create that world. Fearlessness in yourselves and in love, life as activism, and the power of community. Beautiful words. Thank you, people, for sharing. I love all of this. And absolutely, I truly believe that we find gender liberation in the space between us. Is when we create community together, when we have the hard heart conversations of when we hurt each other and we can repair, right? That is what's happening in the space between us, right? Is that the repair help us not just in that specific relationship, but in kind of bringing more repair to the world, kind of collectively. I truly believe that, which is why I love doing this hard work. I love that expression, Tristan, of hard work and the power of community, as Abel said. And Lauren, we are all a multiverse. We truly are all a multiverse together. I think we are a beautiful kaleidoscope of, of worlds within ourselves. And when we can bring our worlds together, it is just really beautiful and expansive. And so, yeah, if there are any questions also, this is a good time, Heart to answer. I love that. Okay, you all are just too good with words. I was like, I don't even have to do a closing because you are all beautifully saying things in a much better way than I ever could. But also, if there are any questions that people have, this is a good time to do that in the last couple of minutes. Like I said, this was just like a little taste, right, of an experiential little experiential journey for an hour or so together. But any questions?
Oh, I'll say one last thing if you can hear me, because you mentioned Prince. Just for some people to dream on, what would your symbol be? If you were all just a symbol, a simple symbol, what would that symbol be?
I love that. Often as icebreakers, I'm like, if you were a fruit, what fruit would you be? If you were a summer drink, what drink would you be? I love that. If you were a symbol, what symbol would you be, right? If we go beyond this ways of defining ourselves and become more creative in defining ourselves, what opportunities open up? How can we get to know each other better, right? When we ask ourselves this kind of questions. I love that. I would be all the fruit, says Jen. I love it. I love a good fruit salad any day. Beautiful. Any other questions or comments? You all are like the best people to spend Saturday with. I'm also able to breathe knowing that healing community is possible. Yes, and honestly, it's scary sometimes to show up in community, especially new community where you don't know who's going to show up, you don't know what they're going to say, right? It's not an easy thing. It's a scary thing, but yet here we are, and we can find healing with each other. Somebody else said, thank you so much for this rich generative conversation. I will be holding this intention set today as a collective for all humans. And the whole enchilada. I love that. All righty. Oh, thank you everyone for creating the space and holding it for each other. Gonna treasure this experience. Somebody shared their symbol, dolphin jumping through a wave crashing. What a beautiful image. So let's take a moment. Maybe, we started with like breathing. Let's take a moment to take it all in. Let's take 3 breaths together to take it all in, using your own lung capacity, going at your own speed, just 3 breaths. Thank you so much. Thank you for holding space for each other so beautifully, showing up so vulnerably. What an honor to spend this hour with you. I hope you're having a lovely summit and that you'll have more fun tomorrow. And thank you so much for coming and sharing your breakout time with me. I really appreciate all of you. Have a beautiful evening. Bye, everybody.